Here's another composition template, power chord rock. Power chords are simple chords played on guitars that use 2 or 3 notes. Instead of a traditional chord that is built on skips or thirds, a power chord is built on the root of the chord and the 5th note above the root. Here are 2 examples. The first one here, E5, is based upon E, that's the lowest note, and includes the note 5 notes higher, that's your B, and you could leave it there, or you could do a 3-note power chord, which includes the E an octave higher. And then here's another example, A5, you have A, 5 notes higher you have E, and then 5 notes, or an octave higher you have A again. And so these are both called power chords, and you can do it 2-note, which would be the lower 2, or 3-note chords, which would be all 3 of them within an octave. It's just like a regular chord actually, but we leave out the 3rd note in there. These are very versatile chords because you can play them in any tonality, major or minor. They're also fairly simple to play for guitar players. And so therefore they can be found in most rock songs written in the past, 50 or 60 years. Let's listen to these. Learn why they're called power chords. They get a very powerful sound. And so, that big powerful sound is something that guitarists really like. Frequently, power chords are played as 8th notes. There's also a pattern of accented notes and non-accented notes. In the example below, the primary chords in the key of E are used to play for measure riff. Remember, the primary chords are the 1, the 4, and the 5 chords of a key. And so for the key of E, like we're in here, the E is the 1 chord, the A is the 4 chord because it's 4 notes above E, and then B is the 5 chord because it's 5 notes above E. And these chords frequently make up most of the chord choices in a composition, even in classical music. Let's listen to this part right here. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so that's this part right here. You see the accents here. You can, of course, add that into your composition and do the 8th notes and all that. Another thing that composers like to do is to move a little bit beyond the primary chords to make the song a little bit more interesting. And so here are 3 more chords in the key of E that you can choose from. So we have the C sharp 5. And by the way, I didn't mention this before, when we want to mark a chord as a power chord, we put a 5 next to it. That's how we call it a power chord, because it's the root and the 5th of the chords. Now another one would be the 6th, the F sharp 5, or the C sharp is the 6th, F sharp 5 is the 2, and then here's an interesting one, the G5. Well, in the key of E, that's going to be a flat 3. And I'm not going to get too much into the details of them, but I'm going to give you an example of how it can kind of play into your composition today. After all, we're doing some rock and roll, and they do some weird things in rock and roll sometimes. So let's listen. All right. Now, feel free also to change chords during a measure as well. You don't have to use the same chord for 1 measure or for 2 measures. You can change chords throughout. So here's an example of how the chords change during a measure. Let's listen first. Cool, so you saw how I changed chords here. Now, I did the chord changes on the accented note pattern here. So I went from the E5 to the G5 and then the A5. Now I continue the A5 until I get to the next accented note, and then I do the B5, A5, and then the E5. And so one more time on that one, just to give you another listen. And so as you're making your own song here, I want you to keep having fun with these power chords. And if you play guitar, maybe try to figure out how to play them on the guitar. It's gonna be on the lowest 3 strings of your guitar, maybe 4 strings. You can play an A5 using your some of the middle strings on that one. So here's what you're gonna do. Down here, you're going to compose your own power chord rock song in these 16 measures. And when you play it back, you'll hear a drum beat. I kind of gave that to you. Also, make sure to stick to the chords E5, G5, A5, B, and then also add in C sharp 5 and F sharp 5. Now, you don't have to use all these chords. You can choose some, not others. You can keep to the primary chords. Remember the E, the A, and the B. The G5 is kind of a unique one that kind of sounds pretty cool in there. C sharp and F sharp are also good choices to kind of make it even a little bit more interesting. One thing that often happens in rock and roll songs is there's a pattern to the chords. Frequently it's a 4-chord pattern. So if it was 1 chord per measure, you would do those 4 chords here, 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 and here. And then you would repeat it over and over. You don't have to do that though. You could do it much quicker pattern too, just like I did up here where it's really over 2 measures, and then I just ended it on an E here. Now one more hint on your composition here. To help your song really sound finished, begin and end on the chord E5. That will help you kind of come into start at the beginning and then come into a nice close at the end. And so be creative with it. See what you can do with these power chords. You might have to enter them manually because it's a little harder to copy and paste these, but that's okay. And have fun. Be creative and see what kind of possibilities you'll come up with.